The Olympus TG6 is one of the most popular underwater cameras still to this date, specifically because of its fabulous macro capabilities. Now, it's quite obvious that such a popular camera has a lot of different housing options available on the market. In today's video, we'll look at one of these housing options and I'll share with you my thoughts on why I think that this is a better option than the regular standard underwater housing that is made by Olympus. Coming up. Hey there underwater filmmakers, it's great to see you back here on the channel for the last review video of 2022. Don't worry, there's more videos to come, but this is the last one for this year. Now, the Olympus TG6 has always been a very popular camera, and even now, after having been on the market for quite a few years, it's still being purchased by so many divers who want to get into underwater photography and videography for a couple of very simple reasons. First of all, it is very easy to use. Second, it is waterproof down to 15 meters itself. So for someone who's just diving shallow or for a snorkeler, you don't even need a specific housing for the camera. You're good to go with just the camera as it is. And lastly, I think it does produce some really cool results, specifically in the macro field. It's probably not the best camera for your wide angle shot, but if you're doing primarily macro and sort of mid shot, then the Olympus TG6 is a really good choice. But we're not here to talk about the Olympus TG6 today. We want to talk about housing options. And obviously you do have the option of getting the regular standard Olympus TG6 housing, which is probably going to be fine for most cases out there. But in certain applications, you might want to want something else and something more specific as an underwater housing. I have tested quite a few different housings for the Olympus TG6, and my favorite housing for that camera is the WeeFine housing for the Olympus TG6. Now in this video I want to talk to you about what I like about this housing, what I don't like about it, and I want to tell you my thoughts on who I think should be getting the WeeFine housing for the TG6 instead of the regular standard housing. So let's get into the first point and what I like about this housing. Now there's quite a few things that I like about the WeeFine underwater camera housing for the Olympus TG6. One of them is definitely the very solid build of the housing. The entire housing is made out of aluminum as opposed to the original housing, which is primarily made of polycarbonate. This housing can really take a beating. All the buttons, everything is laid out very nicely and works flawlessly. I've been having this housing with me on probably about 20-25 dives, and I've never ever had any issues with any of the buttons malfunctioning or not working underwater or anything like that. So this is definitely one of my favorite parts about this housing. It is definitely gonna be protecting your TG6 in here. Another positive I find is that you have a lot of attachment options on the housing itself. You have attachment options down here on the bottom where you can attach either a tripod for macro videography, for example. You can attach trays with handles so you can hold it a little more comfortable. But you can also attach some lights right here on the top. It's got a cold shoe mount attachment right here on the top of the housing, so without having to go the extra mile of attaching a handle onto the housing itself, you can just attach something right to the upper part of the housing here, which is a quick fix solution if you don't want to go the extra mile and have the whole setup with handles and trays and all that sort of stuff. Another thing that I'm a big fan of is the integrated vacuum system, and if you've seen any of my previous videos talking about vacuum systems here on the channel, you know that I'm a very big fan of these. I think that it is always beneficial to have such a vacuum system in your or on your camera housings, regardless what camera you're putting inside of it. Obviously, the TG6 is waterproof down to 15 meters itself, so some might argue that a vacuum system on such a housing is not really necessary. That might be true, but I think it's better to be safe than sorry. Having a vacuum system is always preferable in my opinion. And lastly, the housing is rated to 80 meters as opposed to the original housing, which, if I remember correctly, is only rated to 40 meters. Now, unless you're going to be doing some technical diving, you're probably not going to be going down to 80 meters. So you might ask yourself, well, why do I need a housing that is rated down to 80 meters? Very simply, peace of mind. It's obviously better to have a housing that's rated to a deeper depth because it will allow you also to go quite comfortably down to 40, 50, maybe even 60 meters without having to worry about any of the buttons not working down there or any malfunctioning happening to the housing while you're down at a deeper depth. So the 80-meter depth rating is definitely also something that I do enjoy with the WeeFine housing for the TG6. Now let's talk about the things that I don't like about this actually really cool housing. Well, there is two things that I don't really like about it. First of all is that it is, because it's made out of aluminum, it is rather negatively buoyant when in water. So you will, unless you're fine with just compensating the extra weight by your main power and pulling the housing into the right direction, you will need some flotation devices to keep the housing neutrally buoyant. Again, if you know me, you know that I'm a big fan of neutrally buoyant underwater camera systems, because they're just going to make it so much easier for you to perform your filming tasks underwater and to come up with the results that you really want, specifically in terms of stability. And the TG6 does not really have an image stabilizer integrated in the camera itself, so the more stable you can hold the camera when filming specifically, the better your results are going to be, and a neutrally buoyant system is going to help you there definitely. The second thing that I don't really like about the camera is one of the things that I actually liked about it before in my previous section, the vacuum system. Now, the reason here is because the vacuum system, in my experience, hasn't really worked too well on this housing. It is great to have one, but it should also be working in my opinion. And this one doesn't really work too well. And I can't really put my thumb down as to why this is the case. I tried a few different things. Apparently, you need pretty brand new batteries, AAA batteries, to make the vacuum system work. And it sucks a lot of juice, so you will have to change these batteries very often. So when I tested it out first, I used batteries that weren't completely new and it wouldn't work. So next time I put in brand new batteries and it would work. But then again, it would only work for like 1 or 2 dives, and afterwards it wouldn't work again. I put again new batteries inside and still it wouldn't work, and I don't really know what the problem is. Maybe it's user error from my side. I don't want to say that that's not possible at all, but from what I've seen in the manual and stuff, I should be doing everything correctly and it's still not working. So that's a negative for me and something I don't like. If you guys from WeeFine put a vacuum system in here, it should also be a working system and it shouldn't be too complicated to work, so that you can just get it done quickly before you hop into the water for your next dive. So who is this housing for? Or better, who should buy this housing instead of going for the original housing that is manufactured by Olympus? Well, if you're a diver who wants a very solid option for the underwater housing for their TG6, something that they can really trust, then I think the WeeFine underwater housing for the TG6 is a very, very good option for you. As I said before, the depth rating is a big plus for me, not having to worry about the housing not working properly underwater and the buttons getting stuck and all that sort of stuff, even if you're going a little deeper than your normal recreational dive limits. Also, all the attachment options that this housing has are really, really cool in my opinion. And something that I completely forgot about before, I forgot to mention before when we talked about the benefits of this housing and what I like, is that you can obviously also use macro lenses, macro wet lenses, and wide angle wet lenses that you can attach straight onto the housing, and that will give you just much more variety in using the camera, whether that is with super macro or with a wide angle wet lens, so you can get some really nice wide angle shots underwater. Please don't get me wrong, I don't want to say that the Olympus housing, the original housing for the TG6 is no good, but personally I would prefer this housing for the mentioned reasons. And there you have it, guys. Those are my thoughts on the WeeFine underwater camera housing for the Olympus TG6 and why I think that this is a better option and a better choice than the regular housing made by Olympus itself. Hopefully this video was useful to you and you got something out of it, and if that's the case, as always, please do consider subscribing to the channel and do not forget to hit that like button. You know, it means a lot to me. Now, as mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is or has been the last review video of this year. I'm gonna be going into a little Christmas break now, and I'll be back here on the channel on the 10th of January. This affects all the Tuesday videos, the Thursday videos with the reviewing your underwater films series. Those will keep going all the way through the Christmas period and the New Year's period, but the Tuesday videos will be on hold until the 10th of January, so that I can get a little bit of a break and I can come up with new ideas and new video topics for next year. Thank you very much, guys, for understanding, and as always, keep capturing your underwater adventures. Have a fantastic festive season, a great Christmas time with your loved ones and families, and get well into the new year. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you back here on the channel in January 2023.